QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Memorized transactions, check form. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our memorized transactions practice file. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown, selecting the open windows list. We're going to be continuing on with memorized transactions for the outflow or the payment cycle. Last time we thought about memorized transactions related to entering a bill. This time we'll think about memorized transactions related to a check. These are two sides or two components to the typical payment cycle. So the payment cycle, of course, we can either enter a bill, which would then increase the accounts payable and then record the other side to say an expense. Then we can pay the bill, which is basically a form of check, decreasing the checking account and decreasing the accounts payable. Or we could skip the bill altogether and simply write the check, which would decrease the checking account and record the other side to say an expense. So last time we thought about entering the memorized transactions as bills, and those have some pros and cons to them, because if we memorize the transaction as a bill, we can actually say record the bill. I just want you to record it. Don't remind me to record it. Just go ahead and record it. Then we can track when we want to pay it in the pay bills section. So that's kind of a nice format to have. Or we can match up, say, bank feeds for an electronic transaction to the bill. So that's one method you can use. Or you could say, hey, look, I'm just going to skip the bill altogether. I'm just going to record the payments for these types of transactions that are going to be happening, and therefore I want to go to the check form. Remembering that the check form does not necessarily mean a physical check. It also means basically anything that's decreasing, in essence, the checking account. An electronic payment, for example, would still be using the check form for QuickBooks, decrease then to the checking account. So we'll go through a similar kind of list of transactions, but you might say, hey, look, if I'm going to pay the rent each month, I don't need to enter the bill. Maybe I'll just enter the check and it'll just remind me to enter the check rather than going through accounts payable. And then once I have the reminder, then I'll go ahead and enter the check. Or you might, if we have electronic payments set up to automatically go out, and possibly we have bank feeds set up, we might say, hey, just enter the check each month automatically. And then I'm going to just tie it out to the bank feeds, matching instead in this case, not matching the bill, but rather matching the actual check that we put in place to the bank, which gives us that kind of double check rather than being reliant on the bank completely. So in other words, if there was a problem with the bank feed, we would see that because we would record the check on our side, and then when we reconcile, we would see that we recorded it and we never matched it up, and therefore there's a problem with the automatic transfers that are happening. So let's practice a couple of these. If we were to write then a check, we'll do a similar process with the bill, but now we're going directly with a check, decreasing the checking account. If we have the rent payment, let's do this again on 9/15/20. This is 09/09/15/20. This is the prior month to the current month that I'm working in, so that when I memorize the transaction, it'll basically pop up as due in the current month. So whatever month you're working in, you might want to mirror by putting it into the prior month to that month. And then we're going to say this is going to Mr. Landlord again. This is who we're going to be paying. Now we have two bills outstanding. We're not writing the check for those bills, however, because we're practicing entering as if we didn't have those bills. So I'm going to say write check. And then it's memorized in the same account down here. So let's enter the bill. Let's say it's going to be, let's just to make it different, 15 this time. And then I'm going to say the other side is going to be 15. It's going to be going to rent expense. So then I'm going to go ahead and memorize this transaction. One way we could do that is by going to the edit drop down up top, memorize the check this time. So we want to memorize the check. We could rename it. So we can say then maybe we want to call it rent check, to differentiate it from the rent bill form that we had. And then we can add to the reminders list, meaning I want you to remind me to do it. Don't just write the check, remind me about it. Or we can turn it off if we have this set up and we don't want to see it anymore. Or we can have the automatic transfer happen, which means it'll basically automatically do it at that point in time and record it. I'm going to go first to the add reminder. I'm going to say let's do this on a monthly basis, which is often going to be the case. And then let's say this next one's going to be happening on 10/15. So that's going to be prior to the current date. So it's going to say that that one will be due. So I'm going to say okay. And then I'm going to record this transaction on 9/15, and then it should give me another reminder. So I'm going to say save and close. And then if I go to my reminders up top in the alarm clock up here, Then I have a memorized transaction reminder, and it's red, it's past due. So I can also see it in my lists. If I go to my lists drop down and go to my memorized transactions, I could see it here. So here's the item that's past due. So if I go to my reminders, it'll automatically open this list. So let's close this back out, go to my reminders, double click on it, and then I can see it here. And if I double click on this item, it will then populate my check so that I can then write my check. Now this is physically coming out of the checking account, and then I can remind myself and say, okay, I'm going to write the check again and say save and close. It wrote the check again. Now the date is at the 11/15 for the next check, so it should remind us of that. And if I go back to my reminders up top in the little bell icon, the alarm bell, then we don't have any more of the reminders because we have now written the check and it's not something that's coming due in the near term. So let's do another one. So this time let's do it for the healthcare. So let's say we pay healthcare for the same amount on a monthly basis. So I'm going to write a check and we're going to say this is going to go to, I'm going to say 091520. This is going to go to our insurance provider. I'm not going to write a bill or pay the bill. We have some bills outstanding. I'm going to write a check as if we're simply writing a direct check to the insurance company. This one we will make for $650, a monthly amount that we're going to have to pay, insurance expense. There we have it. So then I'm going to memorize this check. We're going to go to the edit drop down. We're going to memorize the check. Hold on a second. Let's do that again. We're going to go to the edit drop down. We're going to memorize the check. And then insurance company is already memorized. Would you like to replace it? I'm not going to replace it. I'm going to add another one. And this time, I'm not going to call it insurance company. I'll just call it insurance expense check. So a different name for it. And then this time, I'm going to say I want to automatically record the transaction. Now, this might be useful. I don't recommend this if you're actually going to record, like write the check. But you might use this if you were to like automatically record the transaction each month, and then you have the check automatically coming out of your checking account with an electronic payment, because then you can match up this automatic transaction to what clears the bank, say using bank feeds. And this will give you like a double check rather than being reliant on the bank feeds. You can say, I'm going to enter it on my side, but I'm going to do it with an automatic transaction, and then I'm going to double check it to the bank feeds. So I'll try it this way, and then I'm going to say this is going to happen on a monthly basis. Next time, let's say 10/15, and I'll keep it at that. So I'm going to say save, and save and close. Now it's not going to show me a transaction and memorized up in the alarm clock up here, but if I close the company and restart it and open it back up, and the date had passed as it has now, then it should pop up and tell me, hey, I'm just going to record this transaction. I'm paraphrasing. But we're going to go file drop down, and I'm going to close the company, and then we'll reopen and see if that memorized transaction pops up. So now I'm going to reopen the company, and it gives me this pop-up saying, hey, we got this thing to record. So it's not telling me, it's not in the memorized area. It's basically saying, hey, I'm just going to record this. Just hit the blue button, and I'm going to record it. So we're going to say, all right, go ahead and record it. And there we have it. And I'm going to say, okay. Now if I was to then go to the balance sheet, to the reports up top, company and financial, and take a look at the profit and loss, or the balance sheet, standard balance sheet, and drill down on the checking account, and I'm gonna say that so there's what we have, and we have this insurance company, and then it hasn't cleared, it hasn't cleared the bank at this point. So if I was to do bank feeds, then I can match this item up to the bank feeds in a similar way as we can match the bill up to the bank feeds, which would kind of show that it cleared, kind of do our bank reconciliation process and give us that double check. So I'm going to close this back out, go to the view drop down, open the open windows once again. Now, if you had a loan payment, you can do that in a similar way as well. And you have this little caveat with the loan as well, with the interest and principal payment. You can do a similar kind of transaction that we did with the enter bill. So I can say, I want to enter the check for the loan, for example. And I'm going to say this happens on the 15 once again. The 15, I'll say, or let's say 9/15/09. And then this is going to go to the loan. I'm going to say loan or bank loan. And I'm not going to do this one. And I'm going to say this is for, let's say 1,500 just to make it different. And then I'm going to say the amount that's going to principal is going to be 1,400 according to our amortization table. And then there's an interest portion, which we're going to say is 100. Now, this interest and principal will change from payment to payment, although the amount up top will remain the same. So when I save the transaction, I want it to remind me that I need to record this. But then when I record it, I'm going to adjust my loan interest and principal down below. So I'm going to say edit. I want to memorize this transaction, memorize the check. Now I'm not going to replace the other one. I'm going to add it. I'm going to say this is call it a loan payment with a check form. And then I'm going to just say, I just want the reminder. Don't actually record it. Just remind me, because I'm going to have to change these two before I record it. And then I want to see that on a monthly basis. The date, I'll say 10/15. Let's do for the next one. And then OK. So it takes a picture of that. I'm going to record this one, save and close. Go to my reminders up top. So if I go to my reminders, and then I say, there's my memorized transactions that are due. I'm going to say, okay, it's red. I need to double click on that. That takes me to my reminders. Here's the item that's due. If I double click on that, it creates another check for the next month. Now the amount up here is correct, but this amount might change. So then I'd have to just remember to come down here and say, okay, according to my amortization table now, this is 425, and this should now be 75, let's say. And we'd have to make that adjustment, and then I can just go ahead and save and record that. So obviously this kind of transaction would happen for anything that's a repetitive type of transaction. So if I was to have like a software company that we're paying on a monthly basis, and it's a fixed amount for some kind of software we're using, 091520, we'd say software company. I'm not going to enter this for the bill. I'm going to say this is for $370, and it's going to be the computer, and then I can memorize this transaction. Again, if it's something that comes out of my checking account automatically, maybe then I just want to record this one automatically. So let's do that one again. I'm going to go to the Edit dropdown. We're going to go to the Memorize the Check. I don't want to replace it. I want to add a new one, and I'm going to say software, but this is a check to memorize. And then I want to say do this automatically and do this monthly. Next one on 10/15. And if we only have a couple payments, like if I'm paying off and it's going to be paid off, or I only have it for a 6-month time period, we could set the number that's going to be remaining so it stops doing it after some point. And then we're going to say okay. And there we have that. I'm going to record this one, save and close. Once again, it's not up here yet. Well, it's not up here at all because we didn't say memorize the transaction and remind me next time. We said just record it, which means it's going to happen when I open up the QuickBooks file again. So I'm going to go to File, I'm going to close the company file, and then I'll open it back up. I'm not going to have a backup. Would you like to back up? No. I live dangerously, although I do recommend backing it up. But in any case, I'm going to double click on this, and we're going to then see if it gives us our reminder. And there it is. And this isn't really a reminder. The reminders are up top in terms of QuickBooks terminology. This is QuickBooks saying, hey, I'm going to record this. Just hit the blue button and record it. And so, because we just told it to record it. So I say, okay, enter the check now, and then okay. And then once that check is entered, we can then check it if I wanted to check it against the bank reconciliation or like the bank feeds when they clear the bank, then that's how I'll do my double check, right? That allows me to enter it on our side and then to double check it with the bank, either with the use of bank feeds or the bank reconciliation.